There are invisible wounds we carry like sacred scars, shaping every embrace we give and every goodbye we fear. Imagine for a moment that your soul is like an ancient scroll where each past life has left its marks, its fears, its unfulfilled promises. Among all these marks, one pulsates with greater intensity, a wound that transcends the veils of time and manifests in every relationship you experience, the fear of abandonment. This isn't just a present-day apprehension, but a deep echo of painful separations your soul has known for millennia. Edgar Cayce, the renowned psychic who claimed access to humanity's Akashic records, taught us that nothing in our current experience is coincidence. Every fear, every repetitive pattern, every person who crosses our path carries an ancestral message, an invitation to healing. The fear of abandonment, according to the teachings of the sleeping prophet, is one of the oldest wounds of the human soul, born from the first separations we experienced when we individuated as embodied spirits. When you constantly check your phone, waiting for a delayed response, when your heart races at a perceived change in tone from a loved one, when a simple change of plans unleashes a storm of insecurity, know that you're not just reacting to the present. You are responding to cellular memory, to information your soul stores about past losses, about separations that profoundly marked your being in other lifetimes. Cayce's wisdom reveals that some people are born with this wound more activated because they chose, even before incarnating, to specifically work with this aspect of healing. These are courageous souls who accepted the challenge of transforming fear into unconditional love, of learning that true union doesn't depend on physical presence or external guarantees, but on the deep connection with the divine source within each of us. Observe how this fear subtly manifests in your relationships. Perhaps you always concede first in arguments, not because you agree, but because you fear conflict will lead to separation. Or you might anticipate others' needs, creating an emotional dependence you believe secures your place in their lives. Some develop a pattern of withdrawing first, as a form of self-protection. If I pull away first, I can't be abandoned. All these behaviors are attempts by the wounded soul to control the uncontrollable, to guarantee something that paradoxically can only flourish in freedom. Edgar Cayce often spoke of karmic encounters, those relationships that seem to carry an emotional weight disproportionate to the time you've known the person. When someone with the abandonment wound meets their soulmate or twin flame, the experience can be simultaneously ecstatic and terrifying. It's as if the soul recognizes, this person can complete me, but can also destroy me. This ambivalence isn't modern neurosis, but ancestral memories of lost loves, broken promises in past lives, traumatic separations that still echo in the present. The child who cries desperately when their mother leaves their sight may be reliving a memory of being separated from parents during an ancient war. The teenager obsessively attached to their first love may be trying to heal a loss that occurred centuries ago. The adult who sabotages happy relationships may be replaying a pattern of self-sacrifice learned in other lifetimes. Each of these behaviors carries disguised wisdom, a call for healing that transcends linear time. But how do you recognize when this fear is driving your romantic choices? The signs are like footprints in the sand of consciousness. You might notice a tendency to attract emotionally unavailable people, thus replicating the abandonment pattern your soul knows well. Or perhaps you're drawn to strong, secure personalities, seeking in them the stability you don't find within yourself. Some develop a compulsive need to please, becoming diluted versions of themselves to become impossible to leave. Cayce taught us that every repetitive pattern in our lives is an opportunity for spiritual evolution. The fear of abandonment, when understood in its cosmic dimension, reveals itself as an invitation to develop deep faith, not necessarily religious faith, but faith in the universe's benevolence, faith that we are eternal beings on a journey of learning, faith that separations are merely temporary illusions from the soul's perspective. Healing this ancestral fear doesn't come from an external guarantee that we'll never be abandoned. That's impossible and would limit the growth of all involved. Healing happens when we understand, at the deepest level of being, that our true nature is indestructible, that we are eternal expressions of divine love, that the people we love are sacred loans life grants us to learn, grow, and serve. When you consciously begin working with this wound, the first step is non-judgmental recognition. Observe your patterns like a spiritual scientist observing an interesting phenomenon. Notice how your body reacts when you perceive signs of possible rejection. Feel the tightness in your chest, the racing heart, the urgency to fix the situation. But instead of reacting automatically, pause, breathe. Remember that you are an eternal soul experiencing a temporary lesson. Synchronicity, a concept Casey deeply embraced, often presents us with healing opportunities precisely when we're ready to receive them. Perhaps you'll start finding books on self-love, or people who reflect back your own luminosity. Maybe you'll begin having revealing dreams where you encounter past versions of yourself and can offer healing and understanding. These aren't coincidences, but movements orchestrated by the higher wisdom of your own soul. A call to healing, overcoming the fear of abandonment, and here in this moment of awakening, I feel the calling to share something important with you. If these words are resonating deeply within your heart, if you feel you've finally found someone who understands the complex journey of the soul, I invite you to join our spiritual family. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, not just to receive more content like this, but because I recognize in you a seeking soul, someone ready to delve deeper into the mysteries of existence. Together we can form a healing community where every shared insight multiplies the light for all. Your presence here is no coincidence, it's pure synchronicity, and I don't want you to miss any of the revelations yet to come. So please, subscribe now, because this transformative journey is so much more powerful when we walk it together. The fear of abandonment, when viewed through the lens of reincarnation as Edgar Cayce offered us, reveals fascinating layers of complexity. There are those who carry this fear because in past lives they were literally abandoned at crucial moments, perhaps as children during wartime, or as partners betrayed in significant relationships. But there are also those who carry this fear because they themselves were the abandoners in other lifetimes, and now experience the other side of the coin as a way to develop compassion and a full understanding of the human experience. This perspective completely transforms our relationship with fear. Instead of seeing ourselves as victims of a destructive pattern, we can recognize ourselves as wise souls who have chosen a specific curriculum of learning. Instead of judging our defensive behaviors, we can have compassion for this part of us that's trying to protect us based on outdated information. This shift in perspective is in itself deeply healing. Healing the fear of abandonment also involves learning to relate differently to solitude. Edgar Cayce frequently emphasized the importance of developing an intimate relationship with our own soul, of learning to find completeness in connection with the inner divine. When you're able to be alone without feeling abandoned, when you can find peace and joy in your own company, you stop seeking in others what can only be found within you. This doesn't mean becoming independent to the point of coldness or isolation. On the contrary, it means becoming so full of genuine self-love that you relate to others from abundance, not scarcity. You offer love because you overflow with it, not because you need to receive it to feel complete. You value the presence of another because you consciously choose to share your journey with them, not because you depend on them for your emotional survival. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process, like the unfolding of a flower recognizing its own beauty. There will be days when you feel strong and centered, confident in your ability to love without losing yourself. And there will be days when the old wound will throb, bringing irrational fears and urgent needs for reassurance. Both states are part of the healing process. Edgar Cayce taught us that the soul learns through cycles, like the seasons of nature. There are times to plant new understandings, times to nurture growth, times to harvest wisdom, and times to allow old patterns to die to make space for the new. The fear of abandonment is often a winter season of the soul, a necessary period of introspection and inner strengthening before new ways of loving can emerge. During these more challenging periods, it's important to remember that you're not alone on this journey. Your soul is constantly receiving guidance from higher sources, through intuitions, dreams, synchronicities, and even through the people who appear in your life at the exact moment you need their specific message. Edgar Cayce called this the spiritual law of attraction, the universe's natural tendency to connect us with the experiences and people who most contribute to our spiritual growth. It's fascinating to observe how people with abandonment wounds frequently attract relationships that force them to confront this very fear. It might be a partner who travels extensively for work, testing their ability to trust in physical absence. It might be someone who struggles with commitment, offering opportunities to practice unconditional love without guarantees. Or it might be a person who mirrors back their own fears of intimacy, creating a safe space to explore and heal these vulnerabilities. These aren't punishments or bad luck in love, they are gifts in disguise, opportunities precisely calibrated by the wisdom of your soul to facilitate your spiritual evolution. When you begin to see your relationships from this perspective, every challenge transforms into a chance for growth, every conflict into an invitation for more compassion, every fear into a gateway to more courage. The journey of healing the fear of abandonment also involves learning to forgive, not just others who have abandoned us, but primarily ourselves for carrying this fear, for reacting from it, for hurting others while trying to protect ourselves. Edgar Cayce frequently emphasized that forgiveness is the master key that unlocks all the doors of spiritual healing. It's impossible to completely transcend any pattern without forgiving all parties involved, including our own soul, for choosing this specific path of learning. Forgiveness, in the context of reincarnation, becomes even deeper. Perhaps you need to forgive someone who abandoned you in this life, understanding that this person may have been your loving partner in a past existence, now fulfilling a karmic agreement that will allow both of you to grow spiritually. Or perhaps you need to forgive yourself for abandoning others in past lives, recognizing that even these painful experiences serve the greater purpose of the evolution of consciousness. This perspective doesn't diminish the very real pain of breakups and loss. On the contrary, it honors that pain as sacred, as vital information about our capacity for deep love, but it also offers a larger context that can transform our suffering into wisdom, our wounds into compassion, our fear into a more mature and generous form of love. As you journey on this path of healing, you'll begin to notice subtle yet profound shifts in how you relate. You may find yourself more comfortable with the inherent uncertainties of human relationships. You may discover a new ability to give space for your loved ones to be themselves, even when that includes aspects you don't fully understand. You may develop a way of loving that is simultaneously deeply committed and gracefully free. Edgar Cayce spoke of the concept of love that liberates as opposed to love that possesses. Love that liberates acknowledges that each soul has its own unique journey, its own timing, its own lessons to learn. When we love this way, we create space for miracles to happen in relationships. Paradoxically, when we stop trying to ensure that no one leaves us, we often find that people want to stay, not out of obligation or because of our neediness, but because they feel genuinely nourished and inspired by our presence. This transformation also affects our relationship with goodbyes and separations. Instead of seeing them solely as devastating losses, we begin to recognize them as natural transitions in the eternal dance of souls. Some people enter our lives for a specific chapter, offering exactly what we need at that moment. When the chapter ends, we can feel gratitude for the shared experience instead of just pain at the parting. This doesn't mean we won't feel sadness anymore when someone we love leaves. It means our sadness will be tempered with understanding, our pain processed within a larger context of meaning and purpose. We will be able to grieve our loss while simultaneously celebrating the gift that person was in our life. The fear of abandonment, when healed, transforms into its corresponding virtue, the capacity to love unconditionally. This is one of the highest spiritual achievements, to love someone so completely that you want their happiness even if it doesn't include you. It's being able to love the eternal essence of a person recognizing that this essence is indestructible and that your connection to it transcends the temporary circumstances of physical life. Edgar Cayce constantly reminded us that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not the other way around. When we truly internalize this truth, our perspective on abandonment fundamentally shifts. We recognize that at the deepest level of reality, abandonment is impossible. We are all expressions of the same divine source, all interconnected in an invisible web of love and consciousness. Separations are merely illusions created by the limitations of physical perception. This understanding doesn't diminish the importance of human relationships. On the contrary, it elevates them to a sacred dimension. Each person we love becomes an opportunity to experience and express different facets of divine love. Each relationship becomes a mirror that helps us discover more about our own spiritual nature. Each goodbye becomes a reminder that our true home is in eternity, not in the temporary forms we assume in this life. When you reach this level of understanding, you will find you can surrender completely to love without fear. You can be vulnerable without feeling endangered. You can commit deeply while remaining spiritually free. This is the alchemy of healing, transforming lead into gold, fear into wisdom, wounds into strength. The journey doesn't end with personal healing. Once you transform your fear of abandonment, you will often discover that your soul's mission includes helping others who struggle with the same wound. Edgar Cayce emphasized that individual healing always expands into collective healing. You may become a beacon of hope for those still navigating the turbulent waters of this ancestral fear. Your own healing experience becomes a gift you can offer the world, not through prescribed advice or judgments about how others should live, but simply through your healed presence. When you can be in relationship in a centered and loving way, without desperate needs or paralyzing fears, you offer a living example that healing is possible. And so what began as a personal wound transforms into a universal service. Your journey of healing from the fear of abandonment contributes to the elevation of collective consciousness around love and relationships. Every time you choose love over fear, every time you choose trust over control, every time you choose freedom over possession, you are adding your light to the great spiritual awakening our planet is experiencing. Edgar Cayce foresaw an era of spiritual awakening, a time when more and more people would begin to understand their true divine nature and live from that understanding. Healing the fear of abandonment is a crucial part of this awakening because it's impossible to truly love ourselves, others, the planet, while trapped in fears based on the illusion of separation. When you look back on your healing journey, you recognize that each person who abandoned you was in fact a teacher in disguise. Each painful experience was a perfectly orchestrated opportunity for you to cultivate more compassion, more strength, more wisdom. Each repetitive pattern was a persistent invitation from life for you to awaken to a higher way of loving. This perspective doesn't invalidate your past pain or minimize the challenges you've faced. Instead, it honors each experience as sacred, each tear as precious, each wound as a portal to more love. You can feel genuine gratitude for the people and experiences that hurt you because you recognize how they contributed to who you have become. And who you have become is breathtaking. A soul that has transformed fear into love, hurt into wisdom, lack into abundance, a person capable of being present with others in their vulnerability because you intimately know the landscape of healing, someone who can offer the kind of love that heals, not because you are perfect, but because you deeply know the path from imperfection to wholeness. This is the true victory over the fear of abandonment, not the guarantee that you will never be left again, but the deep certainty that you can never truly be abandoned because you carry within you an inexhaustible wellspring of love. You have become your own source of security, your own home, your own completeness, and from this inner fullness, all your relationships become celebrations of connection, not desperate attempts to avoid loneliness. The fear that once dominated your choices in love has now transformed into compassion for others still wrestling with this wound. The insecurity that once made you cling desperately has become a deep understanding of the precious and fleeting nature of all forms of human love. The neediness that once made you shrink to please others has transformed into a capacity to love generously from a place of abundance. This transformation is a miracle, but it's not a rare miracle. It is the natural destiny of every soul willing to consciously embark on the journey of healing. It's what happens when we choose to stop resisting the lessons life offers and begin to embrace them as opportunities for spiritual growth. Edgar Cayce reminded us that we are co-creators with the divine, active partners in our own spiritual evolution. Healing the fear of abandonment isn't something that happens to you passively, it's something you actively choose, day by day, breath by breath, relationship by relationship. It's a spiritual masterpiece you create with your conscious choices of love instead of fear. And now, as these words resonate in your heart, as you feel perhaps the first glimmer of what it would be like to live free from this ancestral fear, I invite you to ask yourself a profound question. If you knew with absolute certainty that you are eternally loved by the very source of life, that you can never truly be abandoned because you are an indestructible expression of divine love, how would that change the way you relate to yourself and others from this moment forward? The answer that arises from the depths of your being is where your true healing begins.